2013 was the year of a few milestones for gamers, such as Sony PlayStation 3's game The Last of Us, which redefined the zombie survival horror genre, while Capcom's Resident Evil 6 was a massive disappointment. And biggest of all were the debuts of PlayStation 4 and Xbox One respectively. Both consoles had ushered in the 8th generation wave, with each system featuring updated graphics, quality, and new features such as game capture. This was an exciting time for gamers. However, these systems were not without their faults. While Microsoft's Xbox One resembled a bloated VCR that took up too much space and came bundled with a Kinect device that practically no one asked for, Sony's PlayStation 4, a console with a sleeker form factor that once again had interesting exclusive titles, was still noisy as fuck when playing games. Among the newest 8th gen offerings was Activision's Call of Duty Ghosts, that came out around the initial release of these next-gen consoles. Ghosts is not what some of you would think, i.e. a prequel to SAS Specialist Simon Ghost Riley, but instead this game's narrative takes place within the near future regarding to the nuclear destruction of the Middle East, which serves as a catalyst for a World War III scenario. The oil-producing nations of Latin America formed the Federation of the Americas in response to the ensuing global economic crisis and quickly grow into a global superpower, swiftly invading and conquering Central America, the Caribbean, and Mexico. This sounds familiar, like a plot from Red Dawn, but I digress. The game's main protagonist, the Ghost, led by retired U.S. Army Captain Elias Walker, is a U.S. Spec Ops unit of who specializes in clandestine missions behind enemy lines. He is joined by his sons Logan and David Hesh Walker, along with a trained German Shepherd named Riley. One of the aspects that makes Ghost so nuanced for a Call of Duty game is how the context branches out from the contemporary modern-day setting. Instead, it leans more toward a science fiction narrative courtesy of a post-apocalyptic landscape where cities are devastated by an armed space satellite named Odin, which was used by the Federation militia. The stage is somewhat varied for the most part, which consists of tremor-induced environments and ruined buildings. But to balance out the redundancy, there's even a Moonraker-inspired shootout in space during the second and penultimate stage, as well as an intense firefight aboard a speeding train. The battles were epic and scope that conveyed a cinematic experience, believe it or not. As for the multiplayer itself, which is the main course, instead of the campaign mode, it for the most part was an enjoyable experience. The maps are very diverse, from an Antarctic landscape to a space shuttle launch post, not to mention the implementation of stages that can be altered or destroyed, i.e. a nuke-like kill streak reward, or the pre-order bonus dynamic map freefall DLC content where you could play as either the Predator or Halloween's Michael Myers, once you acquired the Maniac supply drop, of course. This was the first COD game that had you playing as a licensed character. The multiplayer also features deep customization of playable soldiers from uniforms, headgear, race, and gender. The possibilities are endless. Hell, I even created a few characters based on G.I. Joe. Ghost has further set the precedent for character customization that is now used in succeeding Call of Duty games like Advanced Warfare, Infinite Warfare, Black Ops 3, 4, and so forth. Then there's the Aliens-inspired Extinction mode, which had players working together to fight off hordes of extraterrestrial creatures instead of killing off the same old zombies in nearly every Call of Duty game. It was also the first to revolutionize gameplay mechanics such as sliding, leaning against walls when firing a weapon, or being awarded a prize in the form of a supply drop by completing a contractual field order, whether the assignment is killing 2 enemies by crouching, jumping, but in the most case, you can be rewarded by even teabagging someone.
Care package ready for delivery.
Repacking.
Care package waiting for
The
your mark.
gameplay mechanics was also the last of infantry on-foot shooting, before Activision would further delve into the science fiction aspect, where you can transfer via jetpack or anti-gravity parkour, seen in games like Titanfall. But it didn't take long until Call of Duty World War II, and especially the Modern Warfare remake, where the series became a welcome return to form, ditching any trace of futuristic weapons, storylines, and high conceptual aesthetics. If there was one gripe about Ghost from my perspective, it would be the limited selection of weapon variety. Except for the DLC assault rifles, there are probably 6 to 8 gun classes. The launchers only have 4, and although there are customization options, it's mostly for your multiplayer character, which means you can't add an emblem onto your weapon, just maybe a skin at the least. In closing, Call of Duty Ghost is more of a misunderstood okay, or at least an acquired taste as opposed to dumpster fire material. Despite its few shortcomings, this 2013 entry into the CODverse was unfairly marginalized by most gamers and a few critics, to which Activision ceased all operations of the sub-series, resulting in a major cliffhanger ending that will never be resolved, as there are no plans for a Ghost sequel. Another good thing I can say about Ghost is that this was the last Call of Duty game that did not include supply loot crates or shady microtransitions, which began with Advanced Warfare and so forth. In conclusion, Call of Duty Ghost is a great game after 10 years due to its engaging single-player campaign, diverse multiplayer modes, top-notch graphics, level and sound design, and of course the nostalgia factor associated with it. Despite its not so favorable reception to many within the fan base, Ghost remains a highly regarded game in the Call of Duty franchise. Unlike 2021's Vanguard.